Hi, welcome to today's session. Today is just a short introduction to strings. What are strings? So this, for example, is a string, and it represents a sequence of characters. So there is a sequence of characters, so an I, an N, an T, an R, an O, and so on. And in the end, this represents a string. Of course, there's also a class string. With this class, we can create an object, message, for example, and of course, we can assign a value to this object, and now we can use it like that to pass this string here to this method as an argument. And if we run this, of course, we'll get the same output as if we run it like this. How can we work with strings, for example? Of course, you can concatenate strings together. Let's create a second string called name, and here, of course, we can, for example, if we want to achieve something like this, like we want to say introduction to strings by, and then print Raimund. Of course, we can do something like that. So introduction to strings by Raimund, but of course you can also concatenate two strings with the plus operator, and in this case these two strings get merged together, and now we have one message here which says introduction to strings by Raimund, and you see, of course, because we have no white space here or no white space here, it just appends those two strings without a space. How can we fix this? For example, we can add a space here like that, so this is also a string, and now can run it again, and now here we have our space. Of course, we can also do something like that again, and get rid of this and say let's add space here. If you run it now, again, the output doesn't change. We still have our space here. Of course, we can also use a nicer method like the printf, for example, and with the printf we can get rid of this, and the printf looks a little bit different. If you hover over printf, you can see the Java documentation, and here you specify a format. Here's the example how you call it. So you call printf, and then you add a format which is also a string, and then you can add as many arguments as you want after the format. So let's do this. Let's specify a format string. Let's say we want to add a placeholder for a string, then we add a space, and here we also have just insert a placeholder, a second placeholder for a string. So this %s is just a placeholder, then there is a white space, and then there is a second placeholder. And how can we fill values to this, or how can we replace those placeholders with values, with actual values? Here we can add our arguments. So the first placeholder should be replaced with the first argument, and the first argument is our message. and the second placeholder should replace with the second argument, or the second argument replaces the second placeholder, and the second argument is the name. And now if we remove this, run it again, we still have our message here. Maybe I can also show you what it means. What does it mean that this is a sequence of characters? We can iterate through each character with a loop. So let's say we create a for loop, and we will start with position 0. So let's say this is position 0. So we'll start with the beginning, and then we will execute the code as long as this condition is true, as long as this value, or as I is less than message dot length. So with length, for example, message dot length, what is length? So if you don't know what a method does, of course, just put your mouse cursor over the message, and then you should get the documentation. And here it says it returns the length of the string. Let's run it and see what's the length of the string. So it's the length of this string here, and the length here, it says 26. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 26 characters, and that's also the length. So let's continue with the for loop. So do it, iterate as long as I is less than message dot length, less than 26 in this case, and iterate increment after each iteration. And now we can also just print, let's do print line, and here we can access the string like an array, since, or not in this case, yeah, here's a method. Okay, here's a method character add, and here we can input the index. I is our index, for example, or the location or the position of the character. So it also reads like that. So message, that's the string, dot character at I. So in the first case it would be the character at position 0, and since you all know that arrays start with 0, we will get the 0th position here, and this is an I. And on the second iteration I would be 1, and we will get the character at position 1, and since this is position 0, the next position is 1, and we'll get a N. So let's run it, and what does this do? Of course, we get each character printed in a line, in its own line. So the first iteration, we print the first character, or the character at position 0, and in the second iteration we print the character at position N until we reach the end of the string. So we can also get rid of this print line. So let's just print, and now, of course, we, instead of inserting a new line at the end with print line, we just use print without inserting a new line at each method call here, and we get each, it doesn't change, each character gets printed, but side by side. Yeah, so I think the main takeaway should be that string is a sequence of characters, and you use the class string to create an object of a sequence of characters, and you can, this is just a showcase that there's this, that the string is really, it's just a sequence of characters, so you can iterate through all characters of the string with the message dot, with a loop and the message dot character add, and you specify the just the index, for example. You can also say character at position 5. That would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That should be the D here. Let's see if that is correct. And it prints a D, of course. And the other thing you should take away, that you can append strings or concatenate strings with the plus operator, for example. So this just results in 2 times introduction to strings by, yeah. And you can also mix, of course, where since this is a string anyway and this is also a string, you can of course also do something like that and add other strings, or also use operators on not strings which are objects, but on just plain strings which are in the end are also objects, but just to see that you can also use it like that. So thank you very much, and see you next session. Ciao.